All right, Dan, I'm recording if you want to hop on now.
There it is. There it is. Uh,
Yes.
Number three.
He's
that
got
that's my quarterback, man.
Number three is ready to rock. And came to play today, fellas. I hope you did.
we did. We're still waiting on Dom, but we can obviously get going here. So I know you said when we talked on the phone the other day, you said you had a surprise for me, and honestly, I forgot about it until you just signed on for that. So that was impressive, Dan.
The girls were getting ready for bed, and I had the helmet on. I walked in. And I said, I just want to say goodnight to you. And my 5-year-old goes, Daddy, what are you wearing? Right? It's like that's his football helmet.
I
So
would have been
I've never seen that.
I would have been more impressed if your cleats were spatted. That would have been a nice little touch there too.
Listen, if you get a chance to talk to my older brother, you got to ask him to send you a video
Yeah.
of me hopping a creek the other day, like I'm not 42 years old.
Jesus Christ.
And I came up limping, and I thought to myself, if only Tony had spatted up my
Yeah.
ankle, I'd have been just fine jumping 20 feet across this creek bed.
Yeah, that'd have been good. Dom, you missed it. He had his helmet on when he signed
I,
on.
I,
Surprised he can fit the chin strap on with that dip he's got in. Jeez,
well, I figured there are a couple must-haves, right?
Yeah.
Aside from my personality, one of them was just my competitor spirit.
Still
Here to
fits.
practice, here to play hard. It was a good game today.
You didn't. Hey, talking about lippers. You didn't play games with a dip in, did you?
Oh yeah. I mean the games where I knew I wasn't going to get sacked.
That was few and far between. we,
It
we
must have
let
been
you.
after I retired then for sure. So I never
I
saw it.
I
In
was
lieu of a
telling
mouthpiece.
I was
Yeah.
telling the story last week or 2 weeks ago, Dan. I'm sure you remember. Do you remember we scrimmaged the Sharks one day and you drove your truck all around Rotary Park? I'm pretty sure you were 99% drunk. And I think you still threw for like 3 touchdowns versus the Sharks. I don't know if you recall that, but I was gonna kill you that day.
Sober Dan was like insufferable because he took it too seriously. I was
Oh,
okay with Sunday morning Dan most of the time.
You're not wrong. As I got later in my career, and the hangovers started immediately when you woke up the next day. I stopped drinking the night before games, and no one really enjoyed. Cody used to say it to me all the time. He's like, "Dude, go out and get drunk next week because I do not like you this morning."
Like there's accountability, you're getting feedback as a lineman. None of that is what you want. I mean, it's not just, yeah, go do your best, guys. We'll make it happen. That was what we needed more of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know how you did it. I think I played one game in 13 years slightly hungover on a Sunday, and I was like I was miserable. I couldn't feel my legs. And this was like 27 or 28. This wasn't like it was late. This was like kind of the prime, if you will. I
Yeah.
was like, I don't know how you did it.
Well, you have to remember too, it wasn't just that we were out drinking all night. Most of us, it was like 13 of us worked at the bar.
I know, yeah, you guys were working.
Catch 22. And we would just be working and all night and then, on your feet. And then you'd start drinking uh, about 2 o'clock. And so to get your fill, you had to drink till at least 4 or 5.
Jesus.
I have to share this with the three of you who are not any longer in the Springfield area.
Uh-oh.
But get on the FJR's website. Sangamon County has just taken away all 3 o'clock licenses. So it will
Really?
never, Dan, there will never be another Dan who worked till 1:30.
Wasn't
That's
was
why.
it
3:30 in
was it
public.
Catch 22 the only one or what, I don't know what it's called now, but was that the only one left or
Oh, Mr. J's third base. I mean, I used to, bartend.
base.
Oh yeah. I remember third
Rockin'
base.
Robbins, Chantilly Lace till they tore it down.
Go to third base. We were rounding our way home for sure.
Not much good was going to happen at the
No,
base.
nothing
No.
would happen at third base.
Not a chance.
No.
Dom, I know you and I spent many a night at third base with the News Channel 20. The news. Do you remember that?
Yeah, oh, do I remember it? Yeah, she tried to kill me.
Dom and I would would play. We got in. Dom taught me the game of caps, which for two quarterbacks to find another game to just get drunk, insanely drunk, and just throw shit at each other. This is not a PG-13, right?
No, you're good.
This is not a Disney audience.
No, definitely not.
So, but we would sit either in my basement, and then we would take this show on the road to to a third base. I think one night we did it at the Curve Inn. It was rather intense. Competition never escaped us. It's not exactly what you hear like Jordan and Bird talk about, but akin to it.
We cared more about winning those games than we did the games on Sundays. I mean, we would literally. I was actually thinking about this last week when Tony said you were coming on this week, and that was the first thing that popped in my head was caps. And we'd be like, the end of Rocky when Apollo and Rocky are just hammering each other and they're about to die. That's how we were. We were in our chairs, like. And if you guys don't know what caps are, it's like you sit about 7 feet apart, fill up a full glass of beer, and then you shoot with bottle caps. And if you make it, the other guy gets a chance to rebuttal. If he misses it, he's got to drink his beer. And so we would just go. I mean, it was
And we were also not discerning if we were using rusted bottle caps. This was not something.
Wasn't a COVID-friendly game for sure.
It was not a COVID-friendly game.
It's funny, you talk about being out late and taking the show on the road. None of us made enough money not to pregame on package. I had just started my forever career, and it was worse than I made less than the last 3 years at Barton. But we had to pregame, so we had money to go out.
I'm not too proud to say I'd go out and just beg Dan for free beer most of the time. I didn't have any. I still don't have a real job, so I was never paying for anyone's friggin' bar tab. That was for damn sure.
I don't remember paying ever at catch.
No,
ever.
Not very often. No.
I'm gonna get a bill here soon in the email from the Lincoln Brothers. Hey,
that has to be the whole reason Outlaws lost players, because prior to them working at the bars, it was Chris and Alex. Is Chris going out? Then we'll all go out.
Yeah.
It had to be that way. And then we had guys working at the bars, so there was lots of options to not do something we couldn't afford.
Well, that was. I mean, half the time when we'd be done with games and we'd be like, "What are we doing?" We'd just be like, "Let's go to Alex's house because he had free beer." That was a hell of a lot easier than going and spending $30-$40 at a bar. We just go sit at his house and drink his stuff.
Yep. Yeah. Well, I tried to explain it to Chris Haken and Vic Lanzotti that it was I was a part of talent acquisition for the bar, and we're just acquiring talent through the football team.
That's
and
true.
Bringing them in with some free cocktails.
NIL.
That was the start of NIL. You're not wrong.
Yeah.
You're not wrong there, Don. That was our pay.
Yeah. Well, we always ask everybody, Dan, and you and I were talking about this a bit. Dan and I have a very unique background for where'd Brent go? Brent, you okay?
I'm good.
Okay. Dan and I have a unique background in that Dan and I actually played youth football, like youth football, like 6th and 7th and 8th grade together, and then went to rival schools. And I'm sure between those years, I couldn't stand Dan and he couldn't stand me. And then all of a sudden, 2003, I'm the backup quarterback for the Capital City Outlaws. And here comes Dan Eck out to practice. And I'm like, "Oh, it's Dan Eck. Cool. Awesome." And he throws, I still tell the story. He did like a play action fake and threw like a 40-yard, the tightest spiral I've ever seen in my life. And I was just like, thank God. But what was, tell everyone kind of your sort of football journey to the Outlaws.
Please tell
them. And then, you got to talk about your first practice with Brent playing center.
I will, Brent, FYI, at the Hall of Fame, that was a part of the speech that got left in my other jacket. They made me switch jackets before I went on stage. Chris Lawson spun some yarn that was beautiful, and it took my ADHD in another brain. I forgot my whole speech. Made a new one up impromptu.
Doesn't bother me. Here it comes.
So yes, we get a good opportunity to do that right and do it justice. Tony, I think it wasn't just in 2003 like you came out. Like I had just moved back to Springfield, maybe little more than a year ago.
You were up Chicago area, right?
I was going to Benedictine University and was a medical redshirt for 2 years. I came back. I was working at Antonio's Pizza, and you were the assistant manager at the West Isle store there, Family Video, right?
Yeah.
So that was like when we first started to kind of.
I think. Are you still on the Antonio's payroll, by the way? Is that like?
You know, I promise you, I could go back. Farrah and I went out for drinks one night. We were back home and ran into old man Bill Shooter, and what a delightful human. It was a fun experience. And
Yeah. Sorry. Sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt.
yeah. No. Hey, look, tangents are my friend. So, but yeah, I mean, I came home. I had a real bad neck injury senior year of high school, and I didn't have full range of motion in my neck. And so Benedictine was just like, dude, we're not going to let you play. Like, it's just not going to happen. They sent me to all these doctors and crap. So I had gone there with the intent of playing quarterback at Benedictine, because sitting behind Derek Leonard, you knew you weren't playing as a junior. And so you may as well play some wide receiver. So I'm at BU, and it's just, my neck's not getting any better. They're not going to let me play. And I didn't want to pay private school tuition, so I came home, went to UIS. And the first spring that I was there, I decided to go for flag football. And Ben Jackson was on a team in the very first game that we played, and I'm just out there, throwing dimes like a ball. No, I was playing, and Ben Jackson's like, "Hey, I'm playing for the Capital City Outlaws. We need a quarterback, man. You should come out." And little did I know Ben Jackson would be featured on things like Cheaters and so many other things, and the better end of a bitch slap from who was it?
We can't say names. We can't say names. Yeah.
No, we can't say names. No names. No names. This
guy was way before your time, Dom. He was like
Sounds
all
like
I gotta say is he was like 36 or 37, and I'm pretty sure he was a grandpa when he was playing. Like, no joke. Like a 38-year-old
on the Seminoles.
Yeah.
Hey, look, as you get going, Tony, on these episodes, you might need to put your dad on retainer.
I know,
but anyhow,
I know. That's why we all kind of agreed after the first episode. We were like, we gotta be careful with names, because you never know who's gonna.
I frantically started a group text regarding the use of middle names.
Anytime assault comes up, I mean, name out. Got it. All right.
Yeah.
Cool. That takes out a few stories, but so Ben Jackson asked me to come out, and I said, what is a semi-pro? And I vaguely remember from like the high school years, the Bucks practicing like Rotary and stuff. And
I always remembered seeing the box score in the newspaper.
Yeah,
for the Bucks.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and then I remember I came into Family Video and asked you about it. You said, yeah, you should come out and give it a shot. So. And Businger was there too. Businger's like, yeah, I'm not cool. So I came out, but the reason that I came out was I had, as I was telling Tony a couple of weeks ago, is I think a lot of people came back to play semi-pro football because there was, they had their best football ahead of them, or they didn't get the shot they were looking for in college or what have you. For me, it was a lot different, It was playing JFL football was really the first time I can remember someone saying, "Good job, Dan." Right? I remember I got pulled up to the 8th grade practice, and I put a hit on Jeremy Bender, and they called me killer, and that boy Eck, and it was the first time that I like genuinely thought I could do something of worth or value in this crazy thing called life. And so when I came back out, it was more that I had learned through that injury process and sitting there and training as a Q and trying to get your neck better, and you just can't get on the field. And I felt like I owed something to the game of football, because I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you all if it weren't for the game of football. I would have, I don't think I would still be around, because the game of football taught me so much about who I am as a human being. And so my years of semi-pro was like an ode to the game of football. And it was this, like, every game that I went out there, I obviously played for the guys on the team, and I played because it was fun in the competition of it. But ultimately, I was going to give every single thing. And I loved it, Brent, in that one of the episodes said something like, Dan was only hurt if he was dead. And it was because that's what the game gave me. And I'd be damned if I was going to walk off the field and not have given the game the exact same thing. that it gave me. So that's why I came back. It was this torrid love affair, as it were.
We all have it though. I mean, it's
Yeah,
all we all
100%.
have it.
You have to. If you're gonna say I don't have health insurance, but I'm willing to go out there and die every day, yeah. I mean,
We thought you died. I still remember thinking you died versus the first game versus Lafayette when you came in late and I don't even think
no.
I wasn't playing at the time because we went four wide and you got hit and that you were wearing like 1960 shoulder pads and you were wearing that first helmet you had that Lord knows, but you got hit and you got up and your helmet
I got
came off.
knocked up.
You were bleeding from your nose. You might have been
Yeah.
bleeding from your friggin' ear. And Chris was trying to take you out, and you're like, no. And then you stayed in. I think you threw a touchdown pass, but like you got that's probably the hard in all of our years playing, honestly, that's probably the hardest you got hit that first game.
Oh my gosh.
And I think those were your first snaps at quarterback. I mean,
Yeah. It was the first series I got in as Q because we had a QB who had a change of heart about his playing status at the halftime, and so I came out and the first 2-3 plays went nowhere. It's 4th and 10. The pocket kind of collapses inside, so I escape out to the left. And I see the sticks in that middle backer who's like a 3-year starter at Purdue or whatever, and his heels are at the sticks just as he's taught. And it's just me and him. Like I could have juked him. I could have done a spin move. It didn't even have to be a good juke or a good spin. I just had to fall forward. But my dumbass is like, hey, low man wins, right? So like that's what we're taught from low man. No, low man did not win. Right? I got knocked out. It wasn't just that I got knocked out, and yes, nose is bleeding, mouthpiece. You can see it on my dad's got the video. You see my mouthpiece go flying like 20 yards before I even hit the ground. Like I'm parallel on the ground. You can see it on the film. Like they're waving medic. This dude needs an ambulance. But I remember I get up and Chris is like trying to help me off the field, and I'm like, no, I'm good. And he's like, Dan, you're walking bow legged. My right leg was like turning. I'm like walking. I'm fine. He's like, you're clearly not fine. So they give me some fake concussion test on the sideline.
Yeah, we didn't know. We had no doctors on the sidelines.
I can spell my name. It's 6 letters. Dan Eck. I got this. We're good.
Got a break there. Got a break.
Got a break on that one, right?
Yeah, no. And I spelled Bordenkircher.
So I convinced him to put me back in, and somehow I don't know. We got like a turnover or something. We ended up down near the goal line, and it's a running play called to Rob Bolden. And poor Rob, like he's playing fullback, and he played a really good game that game. Like he was in there willing to block and had some really good runs. And we're at the 1 yard line, and the right play is to just turn and hand the ball. But Jamie Ford is uncovered, and Jamie's like waving at me and giving me like signals. I don't. If I would have been asked to spell my name again, I wouldn't have been able to. So I'm like sitting there. I'm like, yeah, I got you, Jamie. It's like I snapped the ball. Jamie goes to run an out route, and I'm like, what are you doing? Right? So now this was supposed to be a handoff, guaranteed walk-in touchdown for Rob Bolden, who was a bowling ball. And now it turns into a scramble, and Jamie ends up on like an outpost, and I hit him on the skinny post. Thank God he caught it. Rob Bolden tried to murder me on the sideline. He's like, what is wrong? He took my play. And I'm like, I don't even know what happened. Did we score?
I don't think Bolden played much after that, man. I think that was pretty much it.
No, he played because the next game was the Sharks.
Yeah.
So he played. He didn't. I don't think he played much that second half of that season though.
No. Hey, Rob and I are good though. I see him a couple times. He gives me a hug and tells me he loves me. That's good.
Because I've seen you take some big shots. I mean, I've watched you. I've as an offensive lineman, I've watched you take some big shots.
I've been responsible for a few of them. The stitches were all mine. Pat Marler stitches.
Ooh,
there were a few times I got you lit, Dan. So I'm sorry. But if you weren't,
and if you're gonna roll out on
outside the pocket, it's not my fault.
I do, but hey, I will say this though: you weren't afraid to throw some punches back. I remember you got ejected from a couple 8-man games for throwing punches.
Yeah, a terrible Tiger game, and that was the worst part of that story was I was working for United Cerebral Palsy at the time, And there was this young man that I really
Oh,
connected with, and I convinced them to let this guy come out. And then there were a couple of folks that wanted to come to the game, so they brought a couple dudes out. And it was like a week or two after. I don't know if you remember. We were on the road somewhere. Nate Bottom fumbled at the right before halftime, and I reached down to pick it up, and I got my arm stuck in between a bunch of helmets and like a huge pile. And I like tore some ligaments and tendons in my left elbow. Right?
did I throw a helmet after? I think I threw my helmet when that happened because I
You
thought you
did,
were
'cause
hurt.
we didn't think going into half I was coming back, and we had legit like Aubrey wasn't there, like we
Yeah.
had no one to take snaps. I think you were mad you might have to go back to Q,
No.
and so and so it was the week after that I had the sleeve on, and we were up on Tazewell pretty big, and they were giving me some late shots, and I don't know who it was, but one of them he gave me a late shot, and then he put his arm in the back of my head, and I'm like my face is down, and he's just pounding on my left elbow, right on that sleeve.
That
And I look up
tracks.
at Bobby, and I'm like the ref, right? And I'm like, Bobby, would you know, you didn't do anything, and he didn't do anything. And so I grabbed him by the face mask, flipped him down, and just bam, bam. And I gave him some shots, and then Bobby's like, Danny, you know I gotta eject you here, and I'm like, yeah. And so but it's I have a picture. I think I have it at the office. It's probably where I shouldn't have it, but there's a picture of me walking off with my head down, and you know, and my guy from United Cerebral Palsy's cheering me on, and and yeah, so it was that was the worst part of it. Is I felt bad that they all came out, and
Yeah.
look, I wasn't afraid to shoot back, and I wasn't afraid to chirp back, but it was rare for me to lose my composure like that.
What was it with Tazewell, Dan? That was I thought you were going to tell a story about the game where the dude just had your arm behind your back, armbarred you, and tried to rip it off. That linebacker, you know, I was standing there watching it, and I almost got tossed.
That was I remember that one too.
Yeah, I know.
That was like the first season of 8-Man. That was because I was at Rotary Park.
Well, I think that was when what was his name? Played DB for them. Great dude. Loved drinking. No, the
Packingham.
Pack. No, not Pack. Pack was too good.
Asa?
No, dang it.
They only had like three.
Not Chris Robinson either.
Oh,
Logan
yeah.
Tyler.
Yeah,
Logan,
I think
maybe
yeah, Logan Tyler, Dom.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
But he was playing DB, and basically it was just like, stop guarding Carlicker. Stop. And we'd throw like 4 or 5 touchdowns on this dude within like the first half. And we used to tease that dude on the forum, which by the way, don't bring that back. That is not good.
No, that needs to come back.
It's not good.
I just want to read the
Right to
archives.
That being in the dark recesses of the internet is where that belongs. But
in Jim Luck's garage.
But I think that they took it too personal when we would joke with this dude, and
everybody took everything too personal. All of us included. We all took that stuff way too personal on the forum.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think part of the reason I don't want to read it was back before I found this word called assertiveness, right? So like for me, it was like, what's the good Catholic boy response? How do I make sure that I'm like the well-balanced Buddha, the Catholic Zen of the freaking AFL forum, until I made some poor social choices, and then I had to go into defense mode. But you have that.
You have that. You will, yeah. Well, it's
Tazewell guys didn't really believe in roughing the passer. I don't think.
No, they did not.
No,
not at all.
It's not a penalty.
Not at all.
No, especially not there at their place. You were lucky if you got referees who had eyeballs when you played Tazewell down there.
Yeah,
that was tough.
When they started, wasn't it them? When they started, like their average age was like 19, right? Like they were all like really.
Everybody was.
Yeah. That AFL was a just out of high school thing.
Yeah,
kind of got in. It really was.
Yeah, we were. I mean, we were the oldest by far. I mean, I would bet on average. I mean, everyone. Yeah, there were. No, obviously you had like the RJ from Bushnell who was 55 playing.
Well, you had Buchanan's dad. You had the Hulkster, the other Hulkster, not Don's girlfriend. Dude. Buchanan's dad would be out there.
Glorious.
Those guys were original with you, weren't they, Dom?
Farmington. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Mid-state after that.
Yeah, the Mid-State Thunderbirds, yep.
Dom, listening to you recall the Farmington days.
They were
my
a
heart goes
treat
out to you,
for
buddy.
sure. Yeah. Good times.
I think we do at some point. Today, I got to have you guys talk about the rivalry for sure because it was fun to be around, and I got to be on both sides of it at least for one season. But before that, I'm going to keep talking so the camera stays on me because everybody does need to see how big of a deal this was. The things keep trying to find my face, but that's how big of a deal this was in Springfield at one time. Yeah. And Dan's still sporting the backwards hat, but I don't think Dom still has those jeans. So
I don't. I have that framed in my office, and my girlfriend makes fun of those all the time. She's like, "What in the hell?" And I'm like, "Really? You want to look at some of the pictures of your eyebrows back in 2006? We can."
Yeah, right.
Yeah, right. So. Yeah. I mean, and the only reason I bring it up is because as ugly as it sometimes got, right? And again, I saw it a little bit from the other side. You guys were never not friends. I mean, it was just crazy. I mean, the quarterback's the leader of the team all day long, you know. And while people are out there actually, some of them trying to ruin other people's lives, you guys are together most weekends. And, you know, and here's the paper, right? So, I mean, it's like, it was just crazy to me. Yeah. But you guys got to talk about that. You got it.
Look, I mean, that article was a lot of fun. That was before things got where they ended up, right? And that article was a lot of fun. And it was, I think, Dom, you correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was a little bit surreal for the both of us. Yeah. Like that this was the this was occurring, but it was really cool. I mean, I thought it was awesome that the Illinois Times did that article. It was the Illinois Times, right? That did that.
That was the Register.
Is that the SJR?
We had a couple. We had one in the Illinois Times, one or two, a couple in the SJR though. But I don't know. I mean, Brent, I don't want to take away from Dom and Dan, but how did Robert Burns get wind of it? Was that just from us calling both teams calling every week, or?
Well, that was the lead up to the game in the
right. I know, but but we didn't. There was no pub.
They were covering that season.
That game did start to transcend. You know, I mean, the 2 weeks leading up to that game were a big deal, the playoff, and for many reasons that we don't have to go into, as to, you know, how the field and all that. But it became well known. And listen, Robert Burns at that point didn't know a lot about either team. No, hey, let's look at the quarterbacks and find something. Finds out they're good friends, and hell, that's the article I would have wrote.
And Chris, before that season, Chris was very annoyed with the SJR because he was tired of the box scores when we were turning out, in particular for the Outlaws Stallions, right? We were turning out easily 400 or 500 people for that game. But most of our games were, and I don't know if this is true of you guys, Don, but we usually were getting somewhere in the 100, 200 range. And Chris was like, look, like he had to sit down. I think he took Burns to like lunch or something, was like, look, come on. Like, yeah, come on, cover this. This is some good quality football. There's some really good quality talent that is all area, you know,
local talent.
Yeah, local talent. And so Rob Burns decided that was the year, or maybe the year before, tail end of the last year, where I think he started to give us a little bit more article space until I think there was a difficult experience somewhere where he decided that was.
There was an article a couple of days later. It was a little different.
Yeah,
right.
He definitely.
We'll change a
little different article.
You do, and I do. Even from where I stand, I was never a Stallion. You know, played with the Seminoles, who were most of the players later. But you have to credit the fact that once they nabbed the convention center, it just was. You know, we were playing outdoor fields. Once they got the old boards, once they got a football field, and once they were in that arena, it was just different. More people were interested. And honestly, the regular season game where we got them made it a big deal. Yeah. And that led up to the playoff game. You know, I think it was widely thought they were the better team, and they proved it in the playoff game. I have no problem with that. But when we got that first one outdoors on the outfield of a softball field where people just get drunk and hit dingers, that kind of elevated it too, you know.
For sure.
It helped too. I mean, all the games were on TV for the Stallions that season. We had that deal with like that Insight channel or whatever.
Yeah.
And the saddest part about that is nobody had. We only had like 2 copies of those
I
games.
was
Like,
just gonna say, are there any of those that exist anywhere? You
I
can
don't.
find the
The only
you can
person I
find the
think that probably has
commercial.
it. Yeah, the person I think that probably would have it is either Chris or Alex, because I know they had tape on everything.
Mhm.
That I think they might even at least have the game between us and the convention center. But I had them all on a hard drive in the computer fried, and I've got one. I've got the Tazewell game, and that's it.
Is
And
that the first one?
just so happens Asa Lewis picked me 3 times in that game. So that's
He
You
would.
still have it?
I
Why do you
still
still
have it.
have
I
it?
didn't burn it. Yeah, I didn't burn
I've
it.
got I got
Asa
a
would cheat a slant route. He would cheat a slant route like nobody's business, and I'm like, come on, like he got me a couple times. I thought for sure we'd get him beat on the inside, and you guys, I mean, you guys love the slant route with Tony Carey and
Right.
yeah.
Well, you know how it goes too, right? Like once if a guy gets you once or twice, you're like, okay, I'm getting him back now, like, and then sure enough, I just kept tossing picks to him.
Kind of like my golf game. Once I twice won, I'm
I
not
might have to
doing it
look.
again.
I got a hard
Unravels
drive.
quick.
I got a hard drive from Alex somewhere that I might have. I don't know if I've got any full games on there, but I'll have to pull that out and
Yeah, that'd
check
be
it here.
awesome.
Yeah.
That'd be cool.
Yeah.
We'll have to we can if we do that, we'll just play it. We can just
Just start
comment on
playing
it the
it.
whole
That would
time.
be
Yeah.
a good episode.
It
Yeah.
would be.
But I think to Brent's
Commentate.
point, though, like I mean, the the friendship started. I mean, I think ultimately out of just sheer empathy for what Dom endured in Farmington. Right? You know, it's like, look, man, it ain't all that bad. And in that off season, really, you know, began to cultivate like a really good friendship. And it was a whole host of us, right? It was Pat Schweska, it was Tony, it was Josh Salote, it was a number of us that we would hang a lot. And Dom and I were just relatively persistent about hanging out and sneaking into Brent's bedroom or rearranging Coach Lawson's lawn furniture and decor.
Always sober when we do
Always,
Yes.
and from a good place, and
Yes.
meaning well intentioned, and so it was a lot of fun. But I think as the two, at least from my experience, as the two teams really became the cream of the crop of the league. And all the outside noise, I think you guys talked about it really well in one of the other episodes, is like all the outside stuff that had nothing to do with us as players, but so much as like the chat on the forum about who's better, Dom or Dan. You're starting team tomorrow. Who are you taking, Dom or Dan? And and all of those things just created this pressure that when I was talking to Tony, and I said, when I was listening to that episode, you guys were talking about it. I don't think it ever dawned on me because in that week you were just so focused. You're like, this is who we got this week, and this is outside of the championship the most important game of the week or the most important game of the year. So you're just so singularly focused on it that you don't realize it. But I was telling Tony, I'm like, I'm listening to this thing and I'm like feeling it's 20 years later, I'm feeling all this stress and this pressure. Like I got to play Dom this week, right? Like him and I were going against each other.
Right.
You know?
Never on the field at the same time, but
right, exactly.
I will say this though, like in playing, just thinking about it now, and kind of hindsight, when it was, and this is not a knock on anybody else, but like when it was Dan versus Coster, or Coster versus Drew, even it wasn't the same. It wasn't like there was still I think it turned away from being a rivalry into being bitter. And when it was Dan versus Dom, it was a rivalry. It was always just hard and a hard fought game. And then and again, this is not a knock on Matt or Drew, both great quarterbacks in their own right, but it just wasn't. It didn't have that same kind of vibe. Where like you were just saying, Dan, at that time in that league, you guys were the two best quarterbacks far and away.
Yeah.
Playing in the A-man football.
And we did it differently. By the way, Drew Kitterman, that was the name of the defensive back.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, Drew. Yeah.
God love Drew.
Were you playing when he dislocated his knee, Dan?
Huh?
Were you playing when he dislocated his knee? And we were like giving him shit, like making him laugh as he's on and their head coach was like chastising us. And we were like, get out of here, guy. Like, we've known him forever. Like, he's laughing along with us. Leave us alone.
We don't realize Drew's actually on our team.
Man. But yeah, I mean, those were all, you always knew what you were gonna get when you were playing either of you guys, and that was
yeah. Well, and Dom and I did it. Dom and I had a different style of game. I mean, Dom, you had a much more athletic ability than I could have in my thumb, and so when I ran, it was out of uh, fear of life. When you ran, it was like this gazelle running in through the highlands, and so it was, we did it differently, right? Uh, but yeah, it was always gonna. You always knew Dom was going to be up for that game too, and people were going to be looking at the box score, who threw more touchdowns.
Yeah, 100%. We were just, I mean, it was just always like wanted to one up each other, like we were just competing, right? And it was never bigger than that. And it goes back to, honestly, if you would have watched the games, regardless where we're at when we were playing that beer caps game, I mean, we were just constantly trying to get the next guy. And then when one of us would lose, be like, all right, let's go again. And it's like, dude, we don't even have any more beer left. He's like, oh, get some milk, whatever, you know. Or like,
yep. So we'd make the prudent choice and get in the car and drive out to Maui.
Right, your audio's not working, Brent.
Now we're gonna play some darts.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. But no,
Brent,
I mean,
guys, hold on. Brent fucked it all up.
Oh no,
your audio's not working. He's
got
Brent.
it. He knows what he's doing.
This old motherfucker.
I have some faith in him.
What do you do?
His audio went out for some reason. His mic's not muted, but his audio's not working. This son of a biscuit. And his dog was on the camera. Just trying to get.
He's got it. There he is. Oh
nope,
boy.
Nope.
Transformer.
You're not working.
Yeah, he sounded like a transformer.
Let's just talk about Brent while he has to watch us.
So here's great. While we got him. So when Don was staying at Brent's, one night I was over there drinking.
It's still not working, Brent. Oh God, nope.
Oh boy,
nope.
Yeah.
Nope. He's gonna get pissed.
Dial back in.
Yeah, you might have to come back in. It's live, folks. It's live.
Our damn producer. Somebody, we got to get that producer on the phone.
We got Herb in the studio.
It's about right. When's the last time you talked to Herb, Dom? Not to change subject.
Dude, I couldn't tell you.
Really?
Over a decade.
Really?
Least, yeah.
He reached out. So in like 2010 or 11, he had moved. He was living in California. He'd moved away. He reached out to me on Facebook and was like, "I'm so sorry for everything that happened. I wanna make right. I want to give you guys a free set of jerseys." Well, he was working for some apparel company. And I was like, I don't believe this one bit. Like, no chance. You're full of shit. No way. And he's like, I want to send you guys a jersey. So he sent me, I've actually got a sample jersey that he sent me. That's like super nice, stitched, real nice, was going to be really cool. I'll show it next time. Well, give me a sec. I'll grab it. But, I was like, all right. And then ghosted me, just nothing. And I was like, you fucking
sounds about right. He reached out to me when I was living in Nairobi, offering jerseys and stuff for the guy. I didn't even respond to him because it's the same. Well, and not only that, I was like, okay, even if you give them to me, I got to get through customs with them.
Right.
That's a shakedown. And but yeah, I was. But to bring it back a little bit though, like I think Herb had a lot to do. I don't mean to pick on the guy, but I think he had a lot to do with the animosity and how it kind of turned because, well, I think Dom and I, throughout most of it, maintained a relatively good relationship.
Yeah.
My relationships with people like Jamie Ford, which are great now, that changed. And Jamie and I were tight for a long time. And then I remember like Tony Carey one night, like just being like, dude, I didn't know you, like what I hear about you versus who I just met are different people, you know? Yeah. And so I think there were a lot of things, and sorry to say too, Dom, like I think what ended up happening is because of that relation with you and Herb, like I think you ended up inadvertently getting lumped in, at least with some of the outlaw guys,
Yeah.
unfairly, unjustly with some of that, and it created, at least in those later years, something that was, I think, pure and beautiful, and kind of turned it into something sour it did not need to be, and that was really unfortunate. That's part of our own youth and misunderstanding, but yeah.
Yeah. I think, and it got better once we got the Seminoles going, I feel like, at least
Yes,
until
100%.
yeah, we got some of that out. And like
Yep.
that last game, I mean, it was a great example. The 09 season at Southeast, the last like 6 minutes of that game, it was just like, I just remember being like, okay, this is going to be Dan and I back and forth. And it was just bam, bam, bam. And it was like, like a tennis game almost. Like, it was incredible. And it was just like, time ran out really, because I think we would probably still be on the field if God willing, right?
Yeah, that was you guys got that one, I think, and
we did. Yeah,
that was the year you guys won it that year, didn't you?
Yeah,
was that year? Yeah. Oh, Brent signed off, so
that was the hardest. That was probably one of the hardest losses, other than I remember senior year high school. I think it was like week 4 we were eliminated from the playoffs because we were that bad, and we got eliminated from the playoffs in senior year of high school, and that. But outside of that, like that loss to you guys, and I think I knew, because I think we all knew that was your last season, right, Dom? And so that in particular, like, it wasn't just the loss, because I really felt like we were a championship caliber team that year in particular, and once we got past you guys, I don't remember who you guys played Quincy in the championship. Is that right?
Yeah, Quincy.
And I think we had gotten them once or twice already that year, and I just felt really confident about our ability.
So that was right before Quincy blew up. Like, they were still kind of like mid.
They were good, but
yeah. And but it was knowing that was over, and that was how. And if we'd have lost by 20, I think it'd have sucked. But to your point, that back and forth, and that game exemplified the pressure that rivalry with us was, and for it to end that way. I mean, Cody had to like carry me off the field. I'm just sobbing. And the next year we came back, and Coster was the quarterback, right? And we got him that next year in a very similar
very similar. Yeah, that was you can actually find that on YouTube.
Yeah.
So they've got the last 2 minutes of that game. They scored, we scored, and then they scored on a kickoff return, and then we get the ball back and score again, and then Coster, time ran out, or he threw a pick or something on 4th down. But yeah, it was there.
We scored as time ran out. It was me and Adonis on an option play to the right, and I faked the pitch and I walked in to the end zone.
That wasn't time run out. They had one more drive. We kicked off.
Oh again. No, you're right. We did kick off to them.
But I
remember when I got into the end zone and I knew that we won, and I spiked the ball and I yelled like Rocky does, "Salvo!" No, I'm kidding.
That was Dom and I talked about this the first time Dom was on. There were no, other than the Convention Center game, all of the Outlaw Seminoles / Stallion games were all 1-score games. They were all 8 points or fewer. Like, there was no, it was always a freaking dogfight. I hated playing you guys. Like, hated.
Well, so we talked about that. And remember, I said I thought we got up on you guys in one of the games. I think it was 08. And I knew we did, and I couldn't remember. And I was talking to Pickett about it. And he's like, yeah, we were up by like 17 or 18, whatever it was. And then you got thrown out. And that was the game where Edgar was on. I did, yeah. Edgar was on top of me and wouldn't get off me, and like was kind of jabbing on me. So I,
you pulled a Dan.
I did. I got tossed.
I don't remember that.
Pickett's brother at the time was our quarterback. His name was Tony. He had glasses, and I mean, he was not a quarterback.
Right.
And so the game turned really quick. I think we still ended up winning by a couple points, but it was like we won by a couple points solely because of the clock.
Oh wow, I don't remember that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it was I do remember that now. Yeah.
I didn't remember it either until Nick started talking.
Hey, look, Edgar's my boy, and look, Edgar's probably one of the cleanest AFL players to ever play on the defense side of the ball. Edgar probably should have been the one thrown out there, not you. But they get the guy who reacts, right?
Yeah.
Always picking on the quarterbacks.
Yeah.
And
Oh, I don't remember. That's crazy.
I want to
Yeah.
hear the story you were about to tell about when I lived with Brent. I think I know which
Oh
one you're
my
going to tell,
God,
but
this was the best, Tony. So
Oh wait, he's back. Perfect timing.
oh, it is phenomenal because Brent will absolutely remember this.
that was a wild like 4.5 months that I lived at that house.
Was
Oh
he
my God.
was Brent playing with the Seminoles when Edgar got tossed too?
When I got tossed,
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
that I think that was the year before. Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
Oh wait, yeah, he
Was
was
he
with
Yeah,
us.
yeah,
playing though, or
yeah.
had he
I
not?
I think he was in that game. We'll have to ask if he remembers that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he was
So
playing.
so we're at Brent's house, and Brent was having a good time with us, and he said he was going to go to bed. And for what you know me, Tony, I hate goodbyes, and
Yeah.
no one can leave the party till I'm done or
Right.
passed out. And and so I said, "Well, I'm gonna come get you." And he said, "No, I'm going into bed, my bedroom with my wife, and she is. Do not come in there. She is naked."
Yeah.
And I said, "Okay."
Were they married? I don't think they were married yet.
Maybe they weren't married at
They
that
were
point.
they were on the way. That's why I got
They were on the
booted.
way there.
Yeah.
And he said, Dan, he turns around and points, when he points his finger, right? Dan, I'm not kidding. And if you come in there, Buddy's gonna bite your face off.
Buddy, yes.
And I'm like, okay, because I listen well. And
Yeah.
so Dom's
especially back then.
Dom's like, do it, don't do it. Do it, don't do it. So I'm like, all right, you got to come with me. He's like, okay.
Yeah, right.
So Dom's like following me down the hall. So I think we're going in there together. And I come. I like pop the door open, and you can hear Brett go, Dan. And I'm like crawling on the floor, and I'm gonna like pull in my mind. I'm like, I'm gonna pull Brent out of his bed, and I get around the corner, and sure enough, there's Buddy ready to bite my face.
You were eye level. You guys able to hear me now?
Yes, like you're good. You're good.
I think that was a router issue here. Sorry.
You're good. You're okay.
I remember hearing Buddy growl from down the hallway, and I was like, "Oh shit!"
All right.
What I remember from that night is them trying to get in the back of my house. And again, maybe
I was not in there. I stayed out.
Dom,
we got trying to get evicted.
That is only Dom because you couldn't climb my fence. Because you both tried to climb my fence, and Dan made it over, and Dom came back around to come in the front door of the house.
That was because that was me leaving, right? You said you better get out.
But I thought, isn't that how you came in? You didn't come in the front door.
No, we were drinking with you. You went to bed.
He came in through the living room. Like we were sitting in the living room, and you went to sleep, and you turned around like you were our father, and you're like, "Do not."
I totally had that wrong. I mean, you did go over the fence, but it was on the way out. Yeah, I guess
I heard your voice. I heard Buddy's growl, and I'm like, I'm about to die.
Was Buddy? I kind of remember. Was Buddy a fat little white dog, or not little white dog, but a fat? Yeah, okay. I remember Buddy from very briefly when the few times I went to Brent's house as a guest.
Tony,
I gave that dog so many pizza rolls; it was unbelievable.
Well, Nike was the one. Nike was the one.
Oh, maybe I remember Nike. I think I remember Nike, Brent.
He was big. That was Don Vito. Yeah.
Don Vito was right.
I think the preferred vernacular these days, Tony, is healthy relationship with food, but whatever.
Yeah, whatever. Brent, we were discussing when you were having your snafu. I didn't remember. Dom was talking about the game. He got ejected.
You remember that? I
got Dom.
Yeah. Oh, no, I remember the one.
Wait.
Yeah, Bushel. But when did you get ejected? What did you do? Was it Seminoles?
You're talking about the one we were talking about was Seminoles with me, and you were. I don't know if you were on our team. I don't know if you were in at that point. It was when Edgar was on top of me and wouldn't get off and was like pushing me down, and I started shoving at him, and they tossed me. I think it was the second game that year. It wasn't the playoff.
No,
game.
I remember. When you talk about now, I remember it was hot. I remember it was like it was, but I got such my memory's going bad because usually I can remember crazy.
I didn't remember
like
it either until Pickett said it this morning on the phone. I was like, I do remember that.
That's funny.
Yeah, and Edgar, obviously, big dude, but he was like solid muscle. I could not get him. So, where's my lineman at? Somebody get this guy off me,
Don't. Sometimes we want to kill you as well, and that's a perfect segue to tell a funny story about Dan. And Dan knows this, and Brent knows the story. So Dom, you probably don't know this story. So we're playing the Mid-State Steel up in Peoria, in the Peoria. What's it called? What was that place called? Just Peoria Stadium. Was that what it's called? Yeah, Peoria Stadium.
Yeah, Peoria State.
And it's a close game, and I'm at this point playing center, and Dan's playing quarterback. And 3 or 4 times, Dan. Was it 3 or 4 times?
That what?
That Dan gets in the huddle or calls the play, says on first sound,
Oh God.
and I snap the football to nobody because his hands are not there or he'd forgotten. 3 times, and we fought, and this was like this. I'm talking like 3 of them. They were on like 3rd and 1, like short yardage plays, and this was a close game. This might have been the same game that Pete Smizer scored the
game-winning touchdown.
No, the block. We lost this game, Dan.
Was this 11 man?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I think either the third, and like I am livid at Dan. Like I'm getting ready to murder Dan on the sidelines. I remember I came off the field. We did it the last time, whatever it was, the 3rd or 4th time. I come off the field and I take my helmet and I whip my helmet as hard as I can. And Jamie Ford just sticks his big old paw out and just snags it. But I threw that. I was going to murder Dan. I was going to kill him.
And I had to ride home with him.
Yeah. Well, Dan was telling me a story. Apparently, he pissed me off after a game one time. I made him walk home. I don't remember that.
You know what game that was? That was when we played. That was the game with the John Gillette going to the bag. That was in Belleville Justice game. And what you got to know about that game, Dom?
John Doe.
Yeah, John Doe. Officer John Doe.
Oh, right, yeah. The first 3 or 4, they knew we didn't have backup Q. And so the first 3 or 4 plays,
let's be honest, we weren't very good that year either. Like we
would have lost them no matter what.
Yeah.
But the first 3 or 4 plays, we get on offense and I get under center before I can even say a word, before I can even say down. These dudes, their middle backer just jumped straight over the line, and no offense, Tony, but it's not a high vertical to hop over Tony and hit me. You don't really, and he did it like 3 times in a row. Cody did get tossed.
Cody got tossed.
Yeah. Cody got tossed within like 4 or 5 plays. I'm concussed. Like, no, I don't even know what's happening. Tony's mad because I'm like, and I'm turning around to hand off the wrong way. I'm throwing fly routes to nobody. I'm like
running triple option and nobody else is doing it. You're like,
yeah. I have no idea what's happening. And so we're in the car on the way home, and we made it all the way back from Belleville. And we're driving down South Graham where the old White Hen was, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like midnight. And I'm on the phone with Dad and telling him like how it happened, and I asked him if he can come pick me up or something. I don't remember. And Tony's like, "Tell him how the game went, Dan. Tell him how the game went, Dan. Tell him how it went. Tell him what you do, Dan. Tell him what you do, Dan." And I rarely, I do now, but back then I rarely would like bark back at him. I'm like, you know what, Tony, shut the F up. And he just like slams on the brakes. Yeah. And he's like, get out. And I think Kanan was in the back. And Kanan hands me my bag. I'm like, Kanan, what the hell?
I'll be honest with you. Like, I was hard on Dan, man. I rode Dan hard. I don't know why. I think it's just because we had that relationship, and or we were able to build that relationship. But like,
you guys were like a married couple.
And we were. Well, we were. I think we were living together at the time too.
And when we talk now, Dom, we're like an old married couple.
Yeah.
We just love each other.
I don't remember Tony losing his cool very often, though. You know,
I did. I started to.
You did it. I don't just remember you like throwing a helmet. For you, that's a
lot. Yeah.
I did a couple other times. I threw my. I still laugh at the one we're playing Quincy, and I slammed my helmet down and right in front. Chris was gone, and so Tommy was the head coach, acting head coach, and I slammed my helmet down right in front of him. And he was like, "What's wrong?" And I was like, "I suck." I was like, "I'm terrible at football." And he was like, "All right, like calm down." And so like a lot of times it wasn't directed at anybody but me. But the one in mid-state, I was gonna kill Dan,
and I
was gonna murder him.
And in little extra color for that, I think it was like after the second or third time, you're like, "Can we just go on one?" And I'm like, "No, I got this."
I'm good.
If I remember that right, and I might be wrong, but I remember something like that between you guys. And I don't know if I might have been out though. George might have already rolled me up by then, but I remember one time Tony going off on Dan. I think this is the situation where, because it was usually me too, in a crazy out on the field way, and Tony would make sense later to you. I would just rage. And if I remember it right, the reason that I did not is because I thought it was on one and I didn't at all. And so like I couldn't insert myself into that because if I didn't know what went on because I thought we were going on one. There's no doubt about it.
It was I don't remember the last one. I think you were out though, Brent. I think you're right. I think you had popped that ankle pretty good by that point.
Yeah, there must have been another time because I did. It was like third quarter. I was out of that game, but yeah. I remember a time where Tony went crazy, but I had screwed up with Dan, so I had to remove myself from the situation. I couldn't join in. It made me mad.
Not to make excuses, it's just dumb on my part, but like those were the days though that when we're breaking the huddle, and I'm telling like 6 people what the play was on the way to the line of scrimmage. And my ADHD ass, I'm like, what? So Tony made the adjustment for the next 7 years that we played together. He would turn around and go, on one, on two.
I definitely would. Hey, that's because my memory started to go bad. So I know. I'd be like, hey, what's the snap count? I did that with Drew too. I turned around, what's the snap count?
Drew would get terrible when you did it. Drew
was terrible.
I remember I came back to pinch hit a couple of times or be the backup for like the playoff run. And when you turn around and do that, and Drew just like, Tony.
Well, odd counts for semi-pro teams. That's a challenge. I mean, we won a lot of games just using red black. I'm telling you, that's about as much as we could learn sometimes with the turnover.
But you know what, Brent, you're right. Like red black alone, there were some games. Like my favorite games were not the games where I threw however many like yards and touchdowns. There was a game that Nate Bottom had like 250 yards rushing in an 8-man field, right? And first of all, offensive line blocked amazing that day, and Nate and his little show pony. I mean, unless we were playing that Chicago Slaughter team or whatever, Nate found a hole, he hit it.
If we're thinking about the same game, was that the Princeville game in the playoffs?
I think
they were petrified of him. We would just toss him the ball, and they were like running away from Bottom.
But we got red black. So Brent, we ended up getting that red black because I always used red black as my color in my cadence. And so we got to it where it was like a couple numbers were inside runs and the mixed numbers were an outside run. And we just call it red black toss, red black dive, whatever it was. And we would so it could be an outside handoff, it could be a toss. But it was funny. And in that Princeville game, they knew we were audibling it. They knew we were calling it, and they thought they had decoded it. It was the simplest audible system, but it was perfect because it didn't matter. I mean, you got 44, 88, 22. It did not really matter what it was. And then I think at one point we were starting to worry they caught on to something, so we started using orange to go opposite. So I'd come in and go red 44, orange, red 44. Oh, I know what's coming. This is a pass. I was like, please go backpedal into coverage because Nate Bottom's gonna take this inside handoff to the left to the house. So,
hey, you're talking about pass. Your best game as a quarterback in Outlaws history was the one you came back and played Quincy, and you were like 40 pounds overweight. I was concerned that your rib pads weren't going to fit you.
Yeah, but that's what made me look big was the rib. No, it was my best game.
We played. So Drew at that point was actually playing for us and the Bloomington Extreme. Yeah. So like he would play for them, and so we ended up having a game on a Saturday, playing Quincy at SHG, and like we knew like 2 or 3 weeks prior, and so we called Dan and we were like, dude, like, can you come down and play? And he came down and played. We had, if memory serves me correctly, we ran the ball 3 times, and they were all Dan. He carried it. We threw like 35 or 40 times, and he threw for like 380 yards and 6 or 7 touchdowns.
7 touchdowns.
And we won like 55 to 45 against Quincy. Well, Quincy had broken off, so it was Hannibal was the stud of the team, so Quincy was bad. But yeah, we just picked him apart.
It was,
and we were not good. We were not a good blocking team. Like I was terrible, and I think we had a Lauer brother who was his first year playing, and then somebody
right.
else. I can't remember if my old a kid I used to coach, Brad DeFrades, was playing. No names, right? I'm terrible at this, Brent, but I just remember we just picked him apart, and Dan was just so fat. I'm
I
sorry.
was fat. I was in grad school. I was working full time, going to school full time, internship 20 hours a week. Yeah,
Right? What's that
I
got
was
to
at
do with
two,
anything?
I was at 225, and I'm like, okay, let's do
I'll
this.
find
But it
Dom.
was
I got some pictures somewhere. I'll send you a picture. Oh, dude,
beefy,
Dom and
beefy.
I,
Oh,
If we
Dom
were
and
I
I,
went
calling the
through
Dan,
that phase. Don't worry. I
if
put on.
we were calling the Dan Patrick show, it would have been beefy.
yeah,
And it was. But you know what was awesome about that game was I I knew that it was extremely likely that was the last time I was going to play
yeah,
football, and to finish it there at Griffin on that new stadium, in that
That's
new
cool.
stadium, and then to play a team like Quincy with the Paul brothers, whom I just love and adore. Those guys, great dudes, and ran an organization the right way, and were a lot of fun to play against, and just
hmm
very gracious uh, folks. And but to do it in that environment, but then the coolest thing was to have Matt Bloomquist as a wide receiver. So as a sophomore in high school was when I realized I was not a Division I athlete, because I had to guard Matt Bloomquist, who would eat up my 10-yard cushion in about a second. So to be able to throw a couple touchdowns to Matt Bloomquist was
that was like you talked about that because as soon as we started to get a lot of Taylorville guys, you started talking about Matt Bloomquist, Matt Bloomquist, Matt
yeah,
Bloomquist.
yeah.
I remember that.
He's an absolute stud, and played D1 somewhere. I don't
He
remember
he
where, but
he ended up going. So he played at Mizzou. He went to Mizzou
yeah,
for a year or two and played football
yeah.
there.
Yeah, but that was a great game. I mean, who else was there? She was Gary
Yeah, Gary
and
Miller, Marcel Pfeiffer,
Marcel Pfeiffer.
who
I mean, and
nobody
those
could
dudes,
guard those guys.
you could not guard the and that was what was really cool is like when you're coming in as a Q and you have no idea about these guys. And I've been coaching college quarterbacks, you know, at Benedictine that that year prior, and so you know you're using your coach language in your brain, right? It's hit three and throw. It's, you know, you're catching all your sights before it happens. So it's almost like everything was in slow motion. Yeah, the Quincy team was not that was definitely not the best Quincy
No,
team they trotted out, but everything was happening so slow, and then the guys that I'm throwing to were that fast that it made it look like I was a video game quarterback, and in reality I was just a roly poly
you were
and
freaking
uh,
roly poly. That's for damn sure.
with some
You got to finish.
extremely talented wideouts that day, and that was a lot of fun. That was a lot
Are
of
you
fun.
saying, Dan? Are you saying you got to finish your career at your high school field? I mean, and
Yeah,
throw to a guy you play. I didn't know any of this. I was gone by then. But
yeah,
talk about stuff comes full circle. That's pretty cool. I
hmm
mean,
that is
that
pretty
I
cool.
wish I'd have been there for it, honestly, because
Yeah,
that's pretty. I mean,
yeah, yeah. It was awesome. I got to finish it there. My grandfather, who you all know and got to know, I guess, over the years, got to see that game and was there for it, and that was really special. My dad was on the baseball field coaching
hmm
baseball, so he came over, and
Wow.
it was I mean, a picture perfect ending to something, and again to you know part of why I felt the need to give back to football as I did is, look, I was born and raised on football, Griffin football in particular. And my senior year, we just sucked. Like a lot of guys on the team did not have the care for the game or the love for the school in the way that a couple of us did. And so to go out, you know, to walk off of SHG stadium field as one of the losingest teams, but then to go in and play one of my best games ever
hmm
in that same environment, um, with Grandpa there and Dad coaching baseball and coming over um, and at a time too where I was just about ready to graduate from my master's and start that next chapter of my life. It was you couldn't have wrote a better ending for that script. But that said, you saw my helmet is here. I am ready. I am an unrestricted free agent. To Dom's point, I do accept NIL deals for
That's
any of
right.
you
Yeah,
folks looking for uh,
uh,
a trimmed down 42-year-old. but I still got some life in the owner.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, hey Dan, talking about that day and then talking about earlier you were talking about how you needed to play, and things. Um, Let me ask you this, because we've all Dom and Tony, and they had their reasons, and I had mine. But what was funny to me, and tell me if you thought that, did you know then that's why you were doing it? I mean, did you know then, hey, this is some unfinished business, or I just love football and want to give back to it? Because when people would ask me later, looking back, I can see it. We went 0-9 my senior year. I didn't go to college and play, but back then I just say I can't explain it. Why do you do that? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, a great question. I mean, yes, I knew it back then. I don't think I appreciated it the way I do now.
Mm-hmm.
Look, I mean, part of why is look, I'm not the most athletic guy by any stretch. I'm not the most talented dude out there. The thing is because I was there to give what I could to the game of football. Like I felt like I owed something that I knew, right? Like I knew I owed something to the game of football. And so in that, it was that genuinely I like, and I don't mean to dramatize it, but it was like I was willing to die if it meant taking a shot to throw a touchdown to win a game. Like I did not care if I went out in that way because I stood tall in the pocket and delivered a strike to someone because that's what the team needed me to do. That that to me is why you play the game, right? Like you play the game because you know there's a chance that something really bad is going to happen to you. You got a little crazy in you. And so you're like, I can go out there and brush face with some severe danger, right? And come out victorious. And can I be in that moment and not flinch? And don't get me wrong, there are plenty of times in my career where I certainly flinched and bailed out of the pocket and those types of things. But it's that moment where you can stand in there. You know that you got a double A gap blitz coming, and there ain't no way it's going to get picked up, especially like an 8-man. You ain't picking up a double A gap blitz. I don't care how good you are. Like it ain't going to happen. And so you got to know where to go with the ball, and you know you're going to take a shot, and you got to stare down the barrel of it, and you got to take it, and you have to. And in my mind, what the game gave me was was something very pure, which was if you work your ass off, if you're willing to put in what other people aren't, you can make something of yourself here. You can. This is a place where you can hear good boy, and uh, so I was going to do right by that. Like that was always in my calculus, and that was always why it didn't matter in that Stallions game where I get cut open and I end up getting 7 stitches, and my mom didn't get her Mother's Day dinner, but a trip to the ER. Like I'm going to stand there and I'm going to take that shot. And I'm going to get up now. Me getting up from those shots and asking you to do it again, that was just my crazy ego, right? Like I ain't scared. Let's do this again. Somewhat fun. I love roller coasters, and that's what it feels like. That's the thing. When you get is a cue, and you get smoked from behind, or you get that shot in the face, just like a roller coaster. It's that drop on a roller coaster, and kind of like that. Kind of miss it, to be honest with you.
Well, I'm sure you can find a team out where you live, Dan. We could set something up. There's semi-pro all over the place, guy.
DC Defenders. I'm quite certain that they're doing just fine without me. But
yeah. Oh man.
And Tom Brady's talking about coming back today, so
you know what? And if he can, I can.
Right.
You know?
I mean, that's what I think. And you're a better athlete than him.
100%.
Yeah, so bam.
And nowhere near the athletic shape that he is, but I'm a better athlete.
Yeah.
In the 40.
In the 4, yeah. Yeah. Oh boy. Well, boys, what else we got? Anything else? We wrap this sucker up?
No, we should find if we could find that 06 game, any of the games really.
Oh,
where we played, we should get one of those games and just stream it and watch it all.
Yeah. We'll definitely have to do that. I gotta find that hard drive and see if we can't figure that one out. But
we got to come up with a clever name. It's the Manning broadcast, but we come with
yeah.
I think we got to give ourselves the ability to do a little moving of the tape too. You know, I mean, it's going to be a breakdown too, right? I mean, it has
Oh yeah,
the good and the bad.
Yeah.
yes.
The good, the bad, and the ugly.
I'm gonna see if I can find that here and do that at work tomorrow because I work hard at my job. So I'm gonna do that.
One of these sessions, I gotta do this just because, and I'll tell the story, and Schweska will appreciate this. But Alote, I think it was the '08 season, picked me one of the games, and I told him next time we play, I'm coming for you. And he's like, all right. And so the video is on YouTube actually. I scored touchdown, and Alote was trying to fold me. I mean, I'm like, dude, I thought we were friends. This dude was like, went low, and he was gonna flip me, and I ended up going over the top and scoring. And so after that, I put it on YouTube, and I guess he would have to tell the story, but he went in for an interview, I think, with the state police, and they had looked up, ran a search on him, and they'd seen that video, and they gave him a hard time about that video being on the internet.
Nice.
So I gotta play that just to break his balls because I know how much he hates that's still on the internet.
Yeah, you got to get Pat Schwesk on, have him talk about St. Patrick's Day, Quincy, Illinois, when we can't get into the stadium.
Was that when we couldn't get he couldn't get his pants untied too?
He's standing there shirtless. He's standing there shirtless, so hammered. I mean, just reeking of alcohol.
You talk about playing
smoking a cigarette, pants undone. I mean, it was fantastic.
Oh boy, he's putting it back on. Oh man,
fantastic, boys.
Nice. Well, Daniel, thank you for coming on, man. It was great having you on, hearing some stories. Where'd he go? There he is. Next time, I think we should all wear our helmets next time we're on next week, fellas. We'll see if we can make that work.
Buckle up.
I'm not sure they'll fit anymore.
No, I know.
I don't expect me to do it. It'll just cause me more technical difficulties.
Put the leather one on from high school. The leather one will fit, won't it?
Yeah, right. Thank you.
Oh wow.
I do have some middle face masks, before they couldn't have that bar there. So
those are the epic ones.
Appreciate you guys, man.
All right.
Good to see you, Dan.
Take care, Dan. Be good. See you, boys.
Good to see you guys. I love that you guys are doing it. Keep it going. This is for all of us making dinner, short order cooks on a Friday night with a bunch of people in the house. This is a great way to not lose my cool while I'm short order cooking for a bunch of picky eaters. So I love it. I appreciate that you guys are doing it. So keep it up and hope to be back on sometime.
Yeah, come back on soon. We got to do that simulcast though.
Yes, we'll get. I'm gonna see if I can get that working for maybe not next time, but the week after. So we'll get that going.
All right, sounds good, boys.
All right, see you guys.
Ciao, y'all.